Welcome back. It is now September the 12th. A little bit of a cooler morning out here. Definitely a little bit of a smoky haze. This week I'm probably mostly going to be looking at stubble fields like this, determining whether we really need to do a post-harvest spray or not. In this case, this field is mostly volunteer barley and volunteer canola from the previous year's crop. So really it's nothing that won't be killed by frost relatively soon, I hope. But there is quite a bit of kochia in some spots, but they are all still quite small. But now that we've had a little bit of cooler weather and a little bit of moisture at the end of last week, we should be able to get pretty good control of anything like this right now. Fields like this one, which is barley stubble, and it has patches of weeds in it here, like this big patch of Russian thistle. Really wouldn't hurt to do something in here this fall. This Russian thistle is still quite green and soft at the moment here. So with Russian thistle, any product that has a decent rated 2,4-D in there will generally have a pretty good effect on it. So Black Hawk is a really good fit for a field like this. Take care of these guys before they go to seed. This pea field has now been harvested for over a month. It had been sprayed and desiccated with Reglone, and that did give it a little bit of weed control at the time, but as you can see, the weeds have since recovered. So we do have quite a bit of Russian thistle like this, as well as kochia. Still nice, green and lush. Good time to get rid of it now. We also have a pretty good stand of volunteer peas. Nothing too terribly wrong with these guys, but they'll be killed by the first frost anyways, but definitely anything kills a Russian thistle is going to get rid of them as well. I just found an interesting weed I don't often see out in this area west of Lethbridge. This is a type of nightshade, which is almost like it's in the same family as a tomato. So these look like little green tomatoes. The plants themselves have mostly died off, but you can still see there is the odd little bit of greenery here and there. So you can see those kind of tomato-like leaves. Really interesting looking plant. Might look a little like a tomato, but definitely do not eat it. When it's named something like nightshade, you know it's not good to eat. Oh, these oats by Colhurst are looking really good. They're developing very well. They're headed out now, and they are really starting to fill. So they're still kind of milky inside, but there is at least something in there. So these are going to get silaged here pretty quick. We want to get it done before it gets frosted on too severely, which can lead to a nitrate problem in your silage. And you will also notice that here in this little patch, we have a bit of a yellowing going on in here, and that is a case of yellow dwarf virus, which is transmitted by aphids. It is in this area quite a lot right now. Some fields are definitely worse than others. This one is not bad, and I think it's because it was a little older than average. The younger fields that are still at a smaller stage are being affected by it more than these are. Here's a patch that is more heavily affected by the yellow dwarf virus. You can see some of that characteristic color change on the leaves and just kind of an overall stunted, thinner appearance to the oats. They're definitely not doing as good. So there will definitely be some yield loss, biomass loss in an area like this. But there's being a viral disease, there's really not much you can do about it. You either silage it as is, or you wait to see what happens, which is, it'll probably just be stunted. Now typically in this area we only see yellow dwarf virus in oats because oats are the only real green cereal crop at this time of year in this area. However, it can affect other crops, most notably winter wheat. So if you have winter wheat going in and it's right next to an oat field, the chance of transmission by those infected aphids can be quite high. So in that case you would want to eliminate the green bridge, aka the oats, sooner rather than later, so that the aphids move on, or you can get them under control before your winter wheat is at a susceptible stage. This hailed out corn is doing not too bad. The ears are still pretty ugly looking here and there, wherever the tassels were the most heavily damaged. But overall, we're pretty much out of the milk stage. Solids are rapidly building up in these, and they are getting quite close to being able to be silaged at that time now. So we just basically have to wait for this crop to start to dry down. We want to be at that 65 to 70% moisture overall, and we'll get her silaged. Now that the milkweed is maturing, you can definitely see those seed pods now where we had flowers last time I showed them. So these little guys are absolutely full of sap as well, as you can see, hence the name milkweed. And these guys are going to split open and they'll be full of thousands of seeds. This field of corn near Lethbridge has a little bit of corn borer going on in here. You can see some of the sawdust kind of here and there. We have some tops here that have lodged and broken off. When you look at them, you can see that they have been chewed on by corn borer. There's quite a bit kind of here and there. You can see more sawdust kind of around here. This one up here has been chewed off. So definitely a little bit of corn borer damage going on in here. You can see more lodged tops in here, and this is all from corn borer damage. You can see more sawdust. I'm not sure exactly what level of protection this variety has. This is a Maize X variety, and I'm not sure exactly which one it is, but it looks like it doesn't have much resistance to it or a BT gene. This is a better example of the damage we don't want to see. This is some corn borer hole and damage right here, right at the base of this ear. So here's the ear up here. So once they feed down here, they weaken that whole node, and then as this dries down, it's going to be very prone to falling and breaking off and will be unharvestable. You can see the hole the worm has made down into there. Now here in this oat field, you can see a little bit of a bronzing effect to the oats. However, it's all just leaf tips that are kind of brown. So this is more of a physiological, like environmental damage rather than a disease. This is likely due to the extremely hot weather we had last weekend where we hit 37 degrees. These leaves were probably just emerging, and irrigation may have been poorly timed and causes kind of a like magnifying glass heat effect and basically cooks those leaf tips. So interesting to see. There is a little bit of yellow dwarf in this field, but overall it's very minor. It's very wet and dewy this morning in these fields, isn't it, Stella? Right? Yeah. Checking out some canola stubble up here by Carmen Gay, and it's been dry enough up here that there hasn't really been any germination of volunteers since harvest yet, and really it's only been harvested for a few days. You can see the odd kernel here and there on the ground of canola, and the best way to take care of your volunteer canola for next year is to have it germinate this year. So stubble like this, it's always a good idea. Run a light harrow over it just to kind of get that seed into contact with the soil and out of that straw. And that way you can get, 70–80% of your canola, if we get a decent rain this fall, in the next little while here, should germinate and start growing. Get it killed by frost and out of the way, and then you don't have to deal with quite so much of it in the spring. Back in that same cornfield I showed last week by Picture Butte that has bad corn borer. So you can see now we have quite a few stems that are starting to go down in here. So this one here was up above the ear at least, so the ear is still in good shape. But some of them are starting to lodge below the ear or where the ear itself is. So that is not really nice to see, but there's not much we can do about it at this point. You see this one here has been chewed off right at the ear. So these guys are starting to dry down pretty good. We're not too far away from silage timing now. We're about, getting to 50% milk line in this field, so it won't be too long now before silage. Down here by McGrath, this lentil stubble has been seeded into winter wheat, so it'll be interesting to see how well this comes up. Moisture conditions in the seed row is not too terribly bad. We should be able to get decent germination, I'm hoping here. So now that this is seeded, we're going to spray over the top of this with some Focus, which is going to give us some residual weed control into the spring. Aside from some irrigated canola that still needs to be straight cut, there's really not a whole lot left to harvest out here. It is mostly in, I would say, at least 75 to 80% harvested, maybe more. So things here are looking pretty good. This canola will probably come off here in the next couple days. Now that we have a lot of canola stubble around, it is a good time to go in and take a look, see what your blackleg and sclerotinia levels were. Basically, you just come in, take a look at your stubble, see if you have, visible disease symptoms on that crown. You can pull it up. In that case, it just busted right off. This one might have been alternaria rather than blackleg, but you can pull that crown out, you can cut through it and determine the level of blackleg. Similar with sclerotinia as well. You look for those really crispy white stems. Crack them open, see if there's any sclerotia bodies inside. On the giant pumpkin update this week, it continues to get larger. I don't know what it weighs now. It's pretty hefty, this guy. He's about, I'd say 22 inches wide now at this point. So I'm just going to keep feeding him water and Lawn Magic fertilizer until we get a frost. Well, this week in the workshop, I've been working on a little knife for a promotional project for AgroPlus. So you see we got the Croplan logo on there, AgroPlus logo. So this 4-inch bladed hunting knife is going to be canola seed promotion. So this is canola flowers here that I've encased in resin, and the rest of the handle is a bog oak. Got some decorative file work with some yellow epoxy fill in there, so still have to get a sheath made for this, but pretty soon you're going to start seeing this on AgroPlus media for the fall. And that'll be it for this week. Thanks for watching, and we'll catch you next time.